Plymouth. Chris.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can, sir. Loud and clear. Fire away.
Lovely. Yeah, so I work in software. I just sold my company for £30 million.
Hang on. Just going to let it hang. We're just going to let that hang. You sold your business for 30 million quid.
Yeah. I work in the business software space. And they charged me 6% tax on that sale. So when I hear that the richest are bearing the heaviest burden, I just don't see it. Like, I think this government and governments before it in this country has created a wonderful environment for business people to start up. It's easy to get loans, risk-free and interest-free. They do lots of support, lots of tax credits. But now I'm doing well. I think it's obvious that it should be time to pay back to society. And when my tax bill came, it was 6%. I was shocked.
Shocked that it because you thought it was going to be higher on the sale of your company.
It should be higher. Yeah. It's one thing for a struggling entrepreneur, but once you're making that kind of obscene money, like people are starving out there. I don't need. If it was a government I trusted more in power, I'd probably ask to donate more.
Well, you can go onto the HMRC website and donate as much as you like to the Treasury coffers. Have you done that?
Good to know. I think I'd find some worthier causes. I'd definitely like to donate directly to local hospital, local school, that sort of thing.
Well, and have you done that?
Yes, I have.
And so that is the way that you want to give back, rather than through the taxation. You will donate that money of your choosing at the moment of your choosing to a school or a hospital of your choice. No,
I think we should all be taxed more, especially those that can afford it. And I think what often happens, those that can afford it, right?
Who would they be?
People like me. And I think what was often the case is, the idea of, the 1% pay the most income tax. Sure, but most of their money isn't through income tax. They have wealth through houses, and that's taxed at a lot lower rate than most of us are taxed. So it's incredibly unfair.
Well, some do, some don't. Let me read you this from Ed in Farnham. I've been in full-time employment since the age of 21, worked summer jobs from the age of 16 as well. I'm now 46, I earn 140 grand a year, but I have never taken any benefits from the state. Luckily, I could afford private dental and only used the NHS for the birth of my 3 children. I'm going to be working for another 21 years and feel I already pay enough tax, says Ed. Does he, Chris?
I think he does, yeah, and I absolutely agree. I think often what happens is that they want the top 20% to fight with the rest of the people. But honestly, like I say, it's the top 1% like me that are just taxed far too little. And all we have to do is find a good accountant to find ways around and means. And so, yes, that man sounds like he's worked very hard, paid a lot into the system. I wish that he thought the NHS and the state school system was good enough that he could take more out of that. But unfortunately, it's not funded well enough. And because the rich aren't paying enough tax.
So there's a level of earned wealth as opposed to sort of given wealth. There's a level of earned wealth, Chris, that you say once you've gone beyond that, you are in such, money la la land. You can do whatever you want pretty much, that maybe you should be taxed more.
Yeah, whatever your accountants say, right? Look, I'm not maybe at a level of wealth where I can be a Tory party donor. And then
I think they'd have you. At this stage, I think they'd have you.
I think they'd have anyone at this stage.
But it's got to be better than some Russian oligarch. Anyway, let's not go down that route. Go on.
Sure. I think the other thing I'll say is, I had the Lord Mayor talk about pensions, and I think they often use pensions as a shield to hide behind. But the truth is, and we know this from the last economic crash, pensions are the first things that go. They call it the dumb money. So I think it's very rich of them to say, we're helping the pensions. You are now, while the economy is doing okay. But during the next economic crash, the pension pots will be emptied first, and it's the wealthy, once again, that will get out with their golden parachute.
Chris, do you mind if you just describe the moment that you knew you'd sold your business for 30 million quid, having built it up, and what that meant to you and what that felt like?
You wouldn't believe it. You're not going to like it. Kind of empty. I was surprised.
Really?
Yeah, it was nuts to me. But building the business, there were times when, I was $500,000 in debt. And I didn't let that shake me. And it was the same when I sold and the money was in my bank, and I was like, kind of indifferent to it. Like the last caller, I'm not in it for the money, believe it or not. I just wanted to make something successful and learn about it and not have a boss, because I'm pretty unmanageable. So I did that. And yeah, when I sold it, I just kind of felt, I guess because I don't know what the next thing I'm going to do in my life is. So it felt like I just lost something, which is a really weird feeling. And I'm sure people are screaming at their radios right now. But yeah, it didn't bring me the happiness that you'd expect.
And do you think that what you did is worthy of respect from other people?
Look, I think what everyone does, loads of people do things worthy of respect. I think teachers and nurses, and that's not a trite statement. Entrepreneurs love to talk about the hard work, and of course there's that. But talk to anyone that's worked 2 shifts at a hospital. And
sure.
okay. Well,
let me ask it the other way. Let me ask it the other way around. That you don't feel less respected than anyone else because of your genius and thereby your financial success.
To be honest, there are some people that would be envious and felt that it wasn't deserved and wasn't fair, and I should be paying more tax. And they're probably right. I did get lucky. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, but I did have some opportunities. There are some people that are envious of that, and that's okay. I think a lot of this cultural stuff forgets that, there are people that are starving and struggling, and that is going to cause envy. And this is the problem with when we have this huge inequality of wealth and income. It does cause resentment. And this is why I think it's important that we make sure we send the lift back down. We're helping new businesses, but also we're making sure people aren't starving to death on our streets. I don't want to live in a country that's doing well, that lets people like me thrive. And at the same point, there's people going homeless, people can't have an operation, all the bad things I hear about in the news. So I think we can have both.
Chris, great stuff. Honestly, and genuinely, congratulations. That is...
Thank you.
Awesome. Chris, thank you. Imagine that. Just cool 30 million just pitches up in the bank account. Oh. And you feel nothing. That was the most interesting thing about what Chris was saying. Just kind of, whatever. 0345... I still can't get past, the idea of 30 million quid just tipping up in your bank account. Not just tipping up, you've worked really hard for it, you built it all up. So, it's not just you've not just won the lottery, you've worked really hard. What's that Warren Buffett saying? The only place where success comes before work is in the dictionary. So, you've worked really hard for it, but man, it must be a better feeling than just feeling a bit empty. There's that clip of Robbie Williams. I'm banging on about this too much. Do you remember that clip of Robbie Williams when he signed a contract? I think this is late 90s, mid-90s. Signed a contract with Sony for, I think, about 80 million quid. And he put pen to paper and he stood up and he said, I'm screaming, I'm richer than my wildest dreams. I'd have thought it'd be more like that. Dominic's in Northwich in Cheshire. Hi, Dominic.
Hi, Tom. First of all, I just want to say that last call, Chris, that was one of the most uplifting things I've ever heard on LBC, basically. And when it comes to can you respect somebody that's got a lot of wealth, that guy, absolutely, 100%. The reason I'm calling is because of this statistic. 30% of tax paid by the top 1%. It gets bandied about quite a lot, and then often it's allied to a phrase like, so the rich are clearly paying enough. And it doesn't make any sense to me. So I was wondering, how would you unpack that statistic that 30% of tax is paid by the top 1%? Because I've got my idea of what it means, and it's quite scary. What's your idea of what that means?
My understanding is it's 30% of income tax.
Okay, 30% of income tax. We can limit it to income tax. That's fine. But what does that mean? What's that saying? What do those numbers, mean mathematically? What's going on in the country to yield that statistic?
Sounds like I'm in a maths lesson here. I think it means that there are lots of people who don't earn very much money. Through a combination of either poorly paid work or very insecure jobs.
Yeah, that's exactly my interpretation.
Yes.
Right? That's one. It's that phrase, 30% of tax paid by the top 1%. Therefore, the rich don't need to pay any more. That statistic is a sign of gross inequality on income, because now, if you take it to the extreme, as an example, if you had a slave-based economy, the top 1% would pay 100% of the tax. Yeah. So that's the thing. And then Chris actually sort of mentioned quite a few of the points that I was going to mention. That the rich actually pay the lowest margin of tax. There's a cap on national insurance. There's a limit on tax on assets and on capital gains and all that.
You're right. But I just want to separate, for ease anyway.
Okay.
taxing income and taxing wealth, because taxing wealth is clearly an area that is being looked at as to whether or not it's fair. But as you heard Lisa and Andy say, I don't know if you were listening at the start of the show, Dominic, but as you heard Lisa and Andy say to us earlier in the week, that Labour aren't looking at that right now. They feel that the tax burden is where it's going to be for the foreseeable.
Yeah, I found that I've got a lot of respect for Lisa and Andy, and I found her inability to say that income should be, wealthy income should be taxed more. I found that shocking. I couldn't understand that.
Why shocking?
Well, because I genuinely don't think it's fair distributed. At times of crisis in the past, the income tax for the wealthiest has been 80-90%, and we're in one of those crisis times. But
I just don't.
I'm not saying it should go to 80-90%,
No.
but the other point that I would make, which is sort of like, again, breaking down that statistic and some of the phrases that go along with it, and the discussion about wealth creators. The wealth creators are the bottom 99%. They're the people that do the work. They are the people that make the profits for the top 1%. The idea that the top 1% deserve, absolutely.
Well, that's just
should
not
be.
true either. I'm sorry, that's not true either.
Really?
Because if you're also talking about taxing wealth as well as income, the top 1% may well have gained their wealth through property being passed down to them, or family member dying, or whatever it might be. I just think the idea that the entire system is some sort of pyramid, that you're only slave driving to make the man at the top of the pyramid as rich as Croesus, it is not completely true, and
I agree.
strips away from people the achievements that they do make whilst working in lots of different jobs for lots of different companies.
Yeah, I agree. It's not one or the other. I don't, but I just absolutely don't think that the idea that the 1% are the wealth creators. Everybody contributes.
Yeah, agreed. Everyone contributes, and everyone should contribute. Dominic, I appreciate the call. Thank you. Get this on 84850. Now, see how this lands with you this Friday afternoon. Tom, this guy, Dominic, absolutely 100% right. I earn £100,000 a year. I'm not rich. It's the really rich, the ones with yachts, says this texter. I earn £100,000 a year. I'm not rich. Discuss. I'm 37, Tom. I earn £100,000 a year as well, and don't consider myself rich, when still over half my monthly take-home salary pays our mortgage due to current interest rates. I don't live in a castle. Yes, I'm not poor, but I'm not sitting on pound notes. It's spent, and I don't have a great pension plan. Rich is much higher, says Joey. Isha in Surrey. Hi, Max.
Hiya. So I was calling because of the idea that people who create wealth or have wealth deserve to be respected more.
Yes.
And
well, not more. Hang on, we're not saying more. Well, okay, more than they currently are, not more than anyone else. Yeah, okay, sorry.
yeah, more than they currently are. But I think the idea that someone deserves to be respected more because of their wealth, it's kind of also saying that someone who doesn't do that deserves to be respected less. And I think that idea is just completely, classist and utterly disgusting. And I don't think people who, create wealth, should be respected more than someone who doesn't.
I would agree with you, but I think the point is being made that actually it's not about respecting people who create wealth more than those who don't. It's about actually giving any respect to the people who create wealth at all. Because as you heard the Lord Mayor of the City of London say, in his view, that there is vitriol poured on those who create wealth, that apparently it is, and I'm using his words, something inappropriate about money making.
Well, I don't believe that's true either. I don't think people who get the money or who have money and are creating wealth are being disrespected for doing that. Not any more than people who are working for a living are.
So your view of someone who is fabulously wealthy is what? If someone said to you, I've done very, very well, a couple of mil in the bank, 30 million in the old bank account the other day, what would your view of them be?
Well, it would definitely be how they made that wealth. If they created a business, they run that business and they work to earn that, I would respect that person. But if that person, like, inherited that money and are making that money completely through, like, investments and stuff, I don't think that deserves to be respected like someone doing, like, a 9-to-5 shift at, like, a job who get paid, like, nowhere near as much.
Would you actively look down on that?
No.
Do you think? No.
But I don't think, like, I think that someone working a 9-to-5 job, getting paid close to minimum wage, that's a harder working job that
100%.
deserves more respect than someone who just gains all of their money through investment, who would also be seen as someone who is creating wealth.
And do you think, Max, that the person who receives their wealth purely through, not through income, through other measures, they should be taxed more?
Yes.
Yeah.
Than they currently are at the moment, at least in line with income tax.
Yeah, but as you heard, the Labour Party are not in that game right now.
And I completely disagree with that.
Mm.
And I honestly wish they would change their position to making capital gains tax the same as income tax.
Interesting. Max, thank you very much indeed for the call. Adam's the first-time caller in Northampton. So many first-time callers today. Hi, Adam.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, sir.
Today.
Thank you. What made you pick up the phone?
I've been listening to some of your other callers regarding tax, and I'd just like to explain my personal situation and kind of my feelings on it. You have to forgive me a little bit. I'm a little bit nervous.
Oh, please don't worry. Please don't worry.
So I worked for all my life and built myself up in project management within engineering. Had a reasonably successful career. Not a high earner, but did okay. Unfortunately, I was born with a spinal condition. I have degenerative spine disease. And what that's meant is I've fallen out of work effectively, and I've had to rely on the benefit system. And of course, I've paid. When I look over the years of how much tax I've paid, and I've always paid into the system. When I've come to rely on the system as that safety net, I suppose. The amount of money that for me and the people in my position is absolutely abysmal, and it makes me wonder where that money's gone. You know, where is people are being taxed at an incredibly high rate in lower earning jobs, and you know where's it gone? Where's that money gone? And to kind of quantify it, I'm entitled to £290 a month. Now, when my gas and electric come to £240 a month, there's just nothing there. So it makes me really wonder where that tax has gone. You know, what's happening?
I think there is a definite breakdown in what's sort of loosely referred to as the social contract. You pay into the system provides a good service for you when you require it, and I think that is being lost. Whether it's the NHS, whether it's the benefit system, whether it's social housing, you know, other than the passport office, who seem to be doing a very good job at the moment, it's breaking, it's falling apart.
I couldn't agree with you more. There's so many. I'm in a number of disabled groups on Facebook, etc. And there's so many people that are in a very similar situation to me. That they've done the right thing. They've worked, and through no fault of their own, they're in a position where they're unable to do so. I'm actually still trying to work part time, even though I'm really, really struggling, because I cannot make ends meet on the amount that I'm entitled to. And again, there's so many other people that are in such dire situation, and it's really heartbreaking.
And therefore, the idea that there are people that the rich get richer, particularly through means of non-income wealth, is very, very difficult to stomach. Adam, I appreciate the call. Thank you very much indeed. Tim's in Southampton. Hi, Tim.
Yeah, hiya.
We go from Adam there describing life being very, very difficult to what you're about to tell us.
So I definitely wouldn't class earning 100,000 to 150,000 as someone being rich. I would say they were comfortable, but I'd also say I started off on about £100 a week. Now I'm lucky enough to be just over 100,000. I am comfortable. It's taken a long time to get here, but that certainly doesn't put it anywhere near the rich category.
how would you know that you're rich?
So I think it depends on what your definition of rich is. My definition of rich would be someone where you really don't have to worry about cash. You can buy what you like to buy. You have the flexible and the freedom to go on holiday maybe whenever you want to. Potentially, your family for your generation or the generation below you is going to be financially secure. And financially secure for me would mean no mortgage, no debt.
That's 7 figures, though, isn't it? That's 7 rather than the 6 figures.
Well, that to me would be the definition of rich.
Do you, given that you're in the higher earning tax bracket, Tim, do you bulk at how much tax you're paying?
It's quite difficult, yeah, because actually, so when you look at it, we do it as a family. So my wife hasn't worked now for 4 years. So when you're supporting the children and the wife, actually, when you break that down, there isn't anything left at the end of the month, but that's because you've chosen to live the lifestyle you have.
Well, quite. I was going to say. But, Tim, I take the point. I think it's a very, very hard circle to square that when you've just heard Adam's call as well. But I understand the point. Tim, thank you very, very much indeed. So, this is it.